All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another live edition of the London's Blue podcast, coming to you after Chelsea lose not 2-1, not 1-0, 3-1 against Brighton on, unfortunately, St. Nicholas's birthday here. Very unfortunate type of results. Not the birthday we wanted to be live streaming about or the result we wanted to be talking about on your festive day, Nick. And boy, oh boy, Chelsea did not bring you anything other than blues on this one.
Full birthday blues. Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about the whole thing, but yeah, what an absolute kick to the nuts.
We have started on a very, very down note here, Sam, but we had talked a little bit about the ways this Chelsea team might struggle with some of the things that Brighton were doing well in our match preview. We did not project two back-to-back red card situations in Premier League fixtures, this one being Trevoh Chalobah heading out of the fixture. And it does make it a little bit more difficult to win games when you're playing one game of 90 essentially minutes with extra time, a man down, and then this one playing about a full half given the extra 11 minutes without an extra man. Like it's not good.
No, not at all. And we talked about this, 100 yellow cards last season, the only team in the Premier League to cross that threshold. And we're here again. We've again accumulated more than we should. Two red cards, two dumb red cards in back-to-back games. So there is a discipline issue. And, I know it starts with the manager, but I'm reluctant to blame Maresca for this. I think it's just a lot of inexperience, a lot of just brain fart all over the place. And you're getting what you get for trying to assemble a Premier League winning squad without any PL experience. So, you're short on depth and it shows the pressures, really, really putting it on and the cracks are starting to appear, which is quite scary considering the games that we have yet to come.
Nick, I think that one of the things people will talk about, and Sam got into it just a moment ago, is this idea of depth or lack thereof, a Premier League experience or lack thereof. And I think when you look across the lineup we saw in this one, you have Rob Sanchez between the sticks. So experience, Premier League goalkeeper, experience with Chelsea. You've Reece James, also experience, Trevoh Chalobah experience. Ferrell Hato, not. So that's one where you could kind of say, also doing it at center back, not left back, where we thought we would bring him in for. Marc Cucurella, experience. Caicedo, experienced. Enzo, experienced. Andre Santos, not. And then you have João Pedro, who's been in whether it was the Championship or the Premier League for experienced amount of time. Pedro Neto as well, and then Estevao. So really out of the starting lineup, I think you could point to three people you would argue maybe are not as experienced or need a little bit more Premier League tenure effectively. And then even those who came off the bench, I mean, it was Badiashile, Malagusto. Obviously, Josh comes on as well. Romeo Lavia comes on, which was probably the biggest shock of any sub off the bench for me out of that grouping. I mean, but I guess I don't know, walk me through where your head's at when you think about this idea of experience and then also kind of like the depth of this squad and being able to handle a match like this. It does feel as if I don't know if I can kind of completely combine the two.
I mean, look, the Sanchez thing last week, the Chalobah thing this week, the players have to know game state. These are two experienced players. They have to know the game state. Yes, there were two errors that led to both of those moments. But at the end of the day, Maresca did say it last week, you'd rather have the player and give up the goal so that you can have a real chance to go get it back. And I mean, yeah, there's some inexperience in this team. Andre makes an inexperienced play leading to the Chalobah sending off. Chalobah doesn't have to foul him. He can just let him go in on goal. There's no guarantee the player's going to score from that position either. And so you just put yourself in a terrible, terrible position. And I don't think that it is experience or inexperience being the culprit here. I think it's players just losing their head and not understanding game state. And that is pretty scary to me at this stage, especially because a lot of these players went through the Club World Cup. this summer. They understood what game state looked like after a couple of Nico red cards last year, and they've regressed in this area. They've regressed from a discipline perspective. There were some just dumb things that happened in this game outside of the big incidents that I was like, what are you guys doing? They just lost their heads. So, I mean, this is Maresca. This is the entire team. I think it's all pretty bad right now.
Sam, I think one of the things that I was kind of thinking about across the entirety of this match, and you and I talked a little bit about this kind of heading into the match preview, was just Minte and how he was going to potentially cause problems for this Chelsea team. It really felt as if, we had gotten a good matchup of, at times, Reese against him. And like that had put us in a situation where we had the ability to control. And then at another point, we had like Malagusa on him, which definitely was, if we're going to call it a mismatch, I would say it's like David Goliath style. Like it clearly did not put us in a situation to defend successfully. What were your thoughts on just maybe some of the ways that, we were or weren't putting ourselves in a position defensively to handle what was, I think, maybe just the kind of the towering strength of the Brighton lineup, at least the starting 11?
I think the first half was really good in that regard because you were trying to be on the front foot. You were trying to do a lot of good things. So the first half, I have no complaints. When you're trying to be, proactive in the way that you approach the game, I think everybody here will agree that there was initiative, there was the kind of performance that you need after 3 winless games. And when that was happening, then obviously Minte has to do other things. He has to track back. And trying to be on Pedro Neto, who goes both ways, you also have to keep that in mind. So there was a lot of stuff that was keeping him hemmed in. But the moment the red card happens, and suddenly Kukureya has dribbled past 2 times, Enzo is struggling to sort of like help in those wide areas, and then all sorts of bad things start to happen. So we did do, I think, a fairly decent job. But again, if you're trying to sit back, if you're trying to give him the opportunity to receive and make those runs in behind the centre backs, get at the full back, but Kukureya is not the best 1v1 defender. We all know that. And when you allow somebody of his age to get into those positions, then usually after 15 or 20 minutes, if you have to play without a man, then it's only going to result in something, cracking. And that's exactly what happened. So I did predict that he would get a goal and assist. He did get an assist, could have been even worse. But yeah, I think that's again an issue just because of personnel. I think we should have had one more person on the pitch and we should have been able to defend that longer. And it's just something that consistently comes to bother us.
Nick, I think coming into a lineup where in a match where you have Trevoh Chalobah and Drill Hatto kind of paired as your starting center back combo, on the back of also Enzo Maresca talking about the trust for someone like Josh heading into this in the pre-match press conference that had a day prior, knowing some of the injury situations, knowing some of the challenges we had, were you maybe surprised to see who started in defense, given what Maresca was saying and what kind of actually ended up happening?
I mean, I had.
Or are you not surprised anymore?
I had a gut feeling that Josh wasn't going to start. I think there's something weird going on behind the scenes with this. And look, I mean, Josh wasn't perfect today. He gives up the equalizer by not getting in front of a more experienced player in Welbeck. But yeah, seeing Hatto back there as a CB was really interesting. I don't think he did too terrible. But it was clear
he didn't get sent off. I mean, so if we're just saying
true.
relative to the other center backs on the pitch, he didn't
get
sent off.
The bar is the floor. You're right. But yeah, it's very strange to me that you have this guy who's, your next academy player who has a real chance of making it at Chelsea and not playing. It might be a health thing. It was like, I don't know. It's very, very awkward. So yeah, I think there was a little bit of early relationship stuff between Hatto and Kukureya, trying to deal with Minte on that side. That was awkward. And then, yeah, I mean, just the passing in general, as the game kind of wore on, was a bit of an awkward thing too. But whatever. It's individual errors in this game again that just lead to goals, and I think there wasn't enough bad out of Hato to like make a big deal out of this. I think he probably had a better game than everyone else in that defensive line. So yeah.
Oh, maybe not. I mean, I guess out of the defensive line, I would probably argue Reese had the best game out of the defense in terms of how he tried to, at points will us forward. It felt was getting forward in this game in a way that, Sam, when you and I talked about in the preview podcast, we had this conversation around, we want to see Reese James getting further forward again. We want to see him contributing in the attack. Doesn't get credit for it, but effectively kick the ball in that ends up getting that light deflection that allows Enzo Fernandez to get the first goal of the game. I mean, when we were seeing that, I mean, that was a promising thing, at least operationally and kind of game plan wise, that points to Maresca was, at least with a full complement of players on the pitch, did have an idea of how to get at this Brighton team, how to make it difficult for them, because that first half was pretty comprehensive in terms of ownership.
It was, and I think when you look at the certain base structure, you can see Maresca is trying to be, on the front foot. You saw Georgina Ruta there in the number 9 position. He's not somebody who runs in behind. He is essentially Joao Pedro's replacement for them, to somebody who loves dropping deep, trying to orchestrate play from there. And instead of having a back three, Maresca said, I'm going to have a back two. And Reece James just moved into midfield and was able to make more progressive runs. And I think that changed a lot of the dynamic in terms of how we were operating in those attacking areas. We, I think, accumulated somewhere above one non-penalty expected goal in the first half of the game. And that was just the story of the half. We should have just gone out and essentially finish it off right there. And, the number just flips after the red card. So, in my opinion, you do find these little encouraging points the first half of the day, but we've been a one half team for the longest time. And Nick will absolutely agree with me on this. We just don't re-emulate that 45 minutes of positivity that we do in a single game. And that's been the issue. And I know this is quite unrelated, but I find this to be the elephant in the room, Dan. Last season, 14 errors leading to goals. This season, we've played 8 games and we've, I think, conceded 6 errors leading to goals. That is not something that you want to see from a team. This is reaching dangerously error-prone, cataclysmic klutzy territory. You do not expect this from a top four Premier League team. So could get even worse. And I like to be optimistic, but just a lack of experience, just a lot of nervousness in the back line. It's just lots of fissures all over the place that are probably harder to fix than people think.
Nick, just on that point, on this idea of the defensive errors, how much are you ascribing that to the idea that, it is the kind of the conditioning and maybe some of the changed lineups or things of that nature? Or are you kind of really just pointing it as like, we still have not elevated the caliber of this squad enough to be less error prone, to have players who, again, not every player is perfect. Players make errors multiple times a game. And so like there are errors that have not led to a goal. There are errors that have led to a goal. So what's your sense, I guess, maybe what's your take on, is this a solvable or addressable problem, or is it just so systemic within the way that the squad has been composed?
I wish it was as easy as like one thing,
No, it needs to be binary, Nick. People love binary. A and B, 1 and 2.
It's everything. It is players are not fit. It is different center back relationships and partnerships that don't have the opportunity to flourish for more than a game or two. It is the fact that we're having these individual mistakes that lead to reshuffling the deck, and the manager's insistence on surrendering the high ground in order to get a draw at home. It is some of the initial lineup selections to begin with. It is it's everything. It can't just be one thing. And look, I think if you were on the binary choice of like, is it the player's fault for getting the red cards in the last 2 league matches, or is it Maresca's fault for not dealing with the circumstances? It's both. It's both. It can't just be one thing. Like Maresca has shown in previous games when we've had red cards that he can get this team to play as a unit and be really tough to break down. And, I go back to Newcastle last year, which was an early red card. The team really gelled and got stronger in that game and played, I think some really like noble, try hard football in that game. And the last 2 times we've gone down to 10 men, we've brought on defensive substitutions that have led to more goals, and we have gave up. And so I don't know what's going on. I am shocked by what I'm seeing from this team. And I wish it was one thing. I wish it was just the injuries and that we'd get those players back and we'd be back to normal, but it's not. It is truly everything.
I mean, say if you were to just take a look at, where players are at right now in terms of the fitness, the last couple matches we played, if you are saying who is essentially like in your mind plays every game and who is, on the bubble or maybe nowhere where they need to be in kind of terms of fitness. I mean, how many players out of the existing squad are you saying like, yes, they kind of meet or they're above like where they need to be? Or like, is it we can't even field like a full 11 of players that are capable of like delivering right now?
Mix of things, Dan. I mean, I generally look at certain players, and Enzo Fernandez, for example, just, he went from looking like he couldn't really last 60 minutes to, getting a goal, to, semi-decent job today, a good game, I would say, under the circumstances. But a lot of the players just look like they're feeling the effects of the extended summer. And obviously, you can't really talk about fatigue without having pure numbers in front of you. But even people who are there, in on the field for extended amounts of time, even their performances are dropping. And it looks like it's going to be a worry going forward. If you look at, say, Joao Pedro, for example, he's not had a shot, I think, on target or even just a shot in a game for, I think, 3 or 4 games now for us. The last time he had a shot was, he had 3 shots against Fulham. But after the Brazil thing, didn't have a shot against Bayern Munich, didn't have a shot against Manchester United, didn't have a shot today either. So, you wonder if coming back from that international fixture where he played against Bolivia, was obviously sick, didn't want to play against Brentford. He's come in, he's exerting. The 2 red cards don't help, but at least having a front man who offers a little bit of, shooting threat, a little bit of getting into chaos and offering speed on the break. You want a little more from him. And again, it's stupid for me to say that considering you're playing with a man short, but we've also seen teams off the path in Chelsea, where even with the red card, we've managed to get some kind of threat there. So fitness is definitely an issue, but I think personnel also. I don't think we are anywhere close to full strength capacity in terms of depth at centre forward. We are struggling at goalkeeper. There are errors everywhere. Our centre back pairings, not even second choice. It's now a third choice for most Premier League sides. And going forward against Benfica, Barcelona, it's going to be very, very stern in terms of the testing. Can you keep a clean sheet, and can you survive those game states where there's an incredible amount of pressure? And right now, it doesn't look like it.
Wow, that is a really telling and optimistic view of what's happening for Chelsea over the next couple games. I mean, 2 matches, Nick, coming in very short order. The match against Benfica and Jose Mourinho's return, and then the match against Liverpool losing to Palace today, which, when we saw that goal go in for them, we thought, oh, this is a great day now. We're Chelsea being in a winning position at the time, Palace being in a winning position to make up some ground, to push ahead. And that didn't end up obviously being the case for us. If you're looking at the players, that we have available right now, and you're looking at, projecting into these next 2 matches, who are you looking at to maybe, see if they can step up, can take ownership, can try to will something to happen across these 2 results? And I know they're 2 difficult matches. Like, obviously, Benfica doesn't change a manager because things are going great. But at the end of the day, Jose Mourinho knows how to get a result at Stamford Bridge, which is the scariest thing in the world. And then a match against Liverpool, who've, outside of this game against Palace, have been able to find a way, make a way in every other Premier League game they've had this season. Not too easy matches, but, there are still players in this side who are capable of getting a tune. We just need to play 11 versus 11 for 90 minutes and not play a man down for half a game or, an entire game.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots to break down there. I look at Enzo Maresca as needing to do whatever the hell he needs to do to get out of his slump. I think he needs to be bold. I think he needs to take really difficult decisions. I think he needs to respond to adversity way better than he has. And then I look at Trevoh Chalobah specifically for Benfica. Trev has had a couple of blips now. This is a guy that everyone knows that I really like and that I'm quite high on. Obviously, it's been dealt kind of a difficult hand in the partnerships perspective, but he has to come out against Benfica and put on an errorless display. I am really looking at him to be a leader, to show that this was just a blip in form and that he's going to be back and ready to lead this team. That to me is those two guys need to really, really show up. I think you could probably argue, Sam, that there is enough in the team to beat Benfica. I do not think there's enough at all to challenge Liverpool next week. And so I think you basically have to win this Benfica game and limit the damage against Liverpool and get into the international break with your limbs intact is kind of where I'm looking at this now.
I really, really want to pick up any positive point, but it's hard to do that, Nick. And more so when it's your birthday, so apologies for that. But it's
Just
I mean, I'm trying
sad
to
trombone played throughout this entire thing, Sam. Just sad trombone.
No, but I'm hoping that some kind of Jose magic rubs off on the wrong side. But like you said, Chalobah has ended up being one of our best players at the start of the season and has been comfortably our worst in the last couple of games. Not good enough, was at fault for the Brentford goal, and the red card that Sanchez got. Bayern Munich wasn't good enough. Here he wasn't good enough at all. So again, if your second choice centre back isn't good enough, then where do you go? But Yashil hasn't been fit, hasn't been good enough, and then after that, the option just keep going to Josh Achimpong. Again, you're throwing him after he did a MOTM sort of performance against Mateta in the first game, and suddenly thrown into the mix with a man shot. Not ideal circumstances for a guy his age, but at this point, if he wants to make that centre back position his own, then those are the auditions he needs to pass, and unfortunately, that's just the way it's stacked against him right now. So really not encouraged by what we need to do against Benfica. I think it's a decent side, so I do expect us to go there, and if we can emulate the first half, get some kind of a result. But Liverpool is not going to be easy at all. I am dreading that fixture, and just going by the attacking strength. Isak building fitness, a lot of players also in good form. So it's not going to be easy. Lost today as well. So they'll want to put something right in the league. So, trying to be positive here, Dan, please forgive me. But it just seems like, it's all pointing in one direction, unfortunately.
Oh, look, I mean, we can try to be positive, but the results make it a little difficult. The player fitness make it difficult. The errors leading to goal, the goals allowed. I mean, there's just a lot of things that don't allow you to have a very positive spin on what has been, I think, a regression back to, maybe what we saw at points last season, Nick, coming off that high of winning the Club World Cup and then coming into this season, getting an initial start that made you feel decent. But now just kind of falling back in off of these injuries, like the lack of positivity is justifiable, I think.
I mean, we had one decent performance against West Ham, and I say decent because obviously West Ham are quite bad and have sacked their manager in September. So
Graham Potter's available, guys. Just want to make that clear to everybody.
Yeah, so just buckle up for what could be the greatest comeback story of all time. Come on. No, I mean it's really tough. You look at how we have played this season. I think you could say the Palace match was a justified draw. I think the West Ham match, obviously, we did kind of get out a little bit on that one. The Fulham match was quite lucky. The Brentford match was a justified draw. We played pretty badly in that game. The Bayern Munich result was justified. The United result was justified, and we didn't look good against Lincoln City. This has not been a good start to the season. This Brighton result is going to stick with us for a while because I am a firm believer that they're not very good. And I think by the end of the season, they'll be in the same position that they normally are, which is 10th, 11th, 9th, somewhere in there. And to lose at home to a team like that it's pretty devastating if you had your aim at the top four this season. And so I don't know, Dan, I look at this and I am trying to figure out where, kind of Maresca pulls inspiration from. I am not buoyed by his changes in the last two red card matches. I think that he kind of just surrendered and was like, please don't hurt us anymore, instead of trying to attack it. I mean, I think you would have genuinely, after the United game in particular, you can do that once. You can't do it twice in a row. You really can't. And the Malagusto for Estevao thing, terrible. Malagusto was terrible on the day. The Benoit Badiashile and Lavia entries to shore up the
Badiashile was more
defense.
ready to fight another player than he was to kick the ball. It's
Well,
wild.
But again, when you need a goal, you're going to bring on a center back and a midfielder who doesn't score goals. I think the crowd would have really got behind Enzo today if he would have just gone full out. Garnacho, Gittins, Ty, bring them all on and really go for this thing, because Brighton are terrible defensively. There were huge gaps up the field, even when we had 10 men. We had the opportunity. Malagusto was in on goal, could have just run toward goal, cuts it back, plays it around. We lose all momentum, lose the ball, whatever. So these defensive substitutions led to two more goals at the end of the game for Chelsea, and it really did feel like a surrender to me. So I don't know if he has to read Sun Tzu and the Art of War or whatever, but he really does need to figure it out, because the crowd was not pleased. I think that was pretty audible on TV. I think it was audible from our friends in the group chat who were in the stadium today. It's a bad look.
I mean, Gusto came on in the 63rd minute. I do feel as if Sam, I mean, we've seen this now in a couple of games where the availability of that outlet, and I think in general, Pedro Neto was not necessarily on his best, but he was doing some hard work today up and down the side of that pitch, as I think at times a singular outlet for any type of forward movement for the ball to try to get us in a position to try to lengthen the pitch in any capacity, to give us some space back, to give us some type of stability or something to build off of foundationally. Where do you see, or maybe what are you seeing in terms of why you think Maresca is making some of these changes versus, I think maybe to Nick's point, we had João Pedro play 90 minutes this game, didn't look 100%, could 20 minutes of someone like Garnacho or another player, Guiu, have been better than, a 60-70% João Pedro.
That's the big one for me. I think in the United game, it was quite evident that you had license to at least keep the outlets open, and you've talked about this extensively. He did make some absolute blunders in terms of changes. And I'd just like to point to you at this moment during the game where we had a break on with 10 men. Malo Gusto surges forward on the break, and then he just turns back and he passes back.
Yep.
And that's what happens when you have Estevao there. You're getting into the byline, you're trying to get at least a corner out of it. If there is a break, then it starts from the defensive third. Gusto, it was just keep the ball. How much of it are you going to do? Keeping the ball with a man short is probably not the solution. You go back into a block, you defend, and then you break at speed. So I think all the changes are there defensive. It's just trying to preserve whatever he has. There's no intent to go and grab something against the turn of play. And, some managers prefer that. Others look at it as, absolutely surrendering the initiative. So stylistically, it is what it is. Maresca is one of those managers that says, okay, remove a winger, put in, a defensive winger and make the side more powerful out of possession. But it also hurts you in other ways, and we saw that today. So if you're 2-1 down after that game set, there's no chance you're getting back to 2-2 because you have left yourself short. And that's what Maresca has to realize. His side are not geared to defend those kind of extensive periods with a man short. His side might be geared to winning something on the break and getting a goal in, but definitely not good enough to stop goals from going in. And that seems to be the problem. The manager is defensive and the side is geared towards scoring goals, and there is no midway past it.
Nick, I mean, I think there have been conversations among supporters now around like, is Maresca it? Is he going to be able to get the job done? Obviously, he comes off of a season where Chelsea win the Europa Conference League, Chelsea win the Club World Cup. So I mean, he's done more than some managers have done in a single season in terms of bringing silverware to the club. So or gold trophies rather to the club even. So that's a plus in his category. On the flip side, I think there are kind of some technical or in match questions that players, people are having. What are your thoughts on? Do you think Maresca lasts the entirety of the season? And I think you could say that off on a current trajectory. And then if you don't think so, when do you think Chelsea's going to make a decision? Because, I mean, you are in a spot now where it is, I think, kind of in a perilous moment, right? You're about to play Benfica, you're about to play Liverpool. I mean, there are games where I think you could kind of say like the Liverpool result, like if you got a point from that, that would be a pretty big performance given where the Chelsea kind of players are at this moment. The Benfica one, you'd love to say it should be a win, but I mean, look, going up against Jose Mourinho just feels like a disaster waiting to happen. But having then lost 2 of your Champions League games out of that initial set puts you really, really behind in terms of where you need to be. Then that puts you into October with not necessarily an easy run of fixtures to follow it up with either. So, I mean, you end up coming back in, you play Nottingham Forest away, though, I mean, Highline Postacoglu could be a fun little challenge for us. We like that. Ajax at home, Sunderland. I mean, so you do have 3 games, effectively then in the back half of October where you could reset. Do you think Chelsea, I guess, where are you at with Maresca at the moment? And do you think Chelsea are going to make a change in the near term?
I mean, I think there's been some like telling things in press conferences that he's not happy with some stuff. I think, when I talked to Matt Law during the week, I think there's some suggestions, not just with what we can see, that maybe there's something bubbling up behind the scenes with the manager and the sporting directors and the ownership. It's Chelsea, so anything is possible. I was really, really hoping start of the season that the players and the manager would hit the ground running, take the momentum from the Club World Cup and the end of the season, kind of form table and really just drive it forward. And it's just not, it doesn't have a good vibe around it right now. It feels like Maresca was maybe not pleased with the summer business, and then the injuries happen, which, of course, the law of averages would suggest that we were going to have injuries this season when we didn't really have them as much last season. All the extra games, all the players trying to, prove to their international managers that they're ready for the World Cup coming up this summer. I don't know, man. I don't know what you do, really. I think that's why I look, as someone said in the chat, so sad, because I don't think there's an easy answer. I don't think sacking him is going to guarantee results. I don't know if keeping him is going to guarantee results. And I'm very, very disappointed in what I've seen from him in the start of the season, because I think you're right. The matches only get harder from here. We've done some easy matches and failed in them this season, and now we're gonna go really into the hardcore test of it all with 2 more international breaks to come. So I think if he wants to be at Chelsea, if he wants to prove that he's one of the world's best managers, we'll see it. And if if he doesn't, if he is in excuse mode, then we'll see that too.
Sam, this ownership and to me, these sporting directors have been willing to cut ties with managers that they've brought in, I would say, unceremonious fashion. 1-year deals, kind of sending, individuals off like Poch, obviously the Graham Potter, kind of in out, bringing in, Lampard back for a little bit, like just some like really unique appointment strategies for managers under the current regime. What are your thoughts on, Maresca right now and just his viability with how he's managing the side heading again into this next 2 fixtures, the international break, and really the remainder of October?
Yeah, that's intriguing. But I would probably say I've been one of his harshest critics last season. Absolutely.
Is it
You
true?
know, went ballistic on him until December when we had that 3-month run, and I said he probably should have been sacked for that. If Roman was around, he wouldn't have made it through those 3 months. At this point in time, I would say it is logical that you keep him. And my reasoning here is the fact that everything that's going wrong on this side is everything that we knew needed reinforcements. We knew the keeper wasn't good enough despite the Club World Cup. We knew the defense was understaffed after Caldwell got injured. We knew the centre forward position was not there in terms of depth when Nico Jackson went, and when the entire saga of "Are you coming back? Are you staying there?" kind of happened. So if 3 key positions back to front is left in limbo, then why are you surprised that your side is underperforming? And I really can't blame the sporting directors here either, because I want to, but the injury to Delap happened, 1 day before the transfer window ended. And then the centre back with Colville ACL, there was Matt Law on the pod talking about, if you ask somebody like a Gay to come in, does he want to come during a World Cup year when he knows a side, spot is guaranteed for him in certain teams? And the answer is no. What would you do after Colville comes back? And it's hard to convince a player that they're going to be first choice after that happens. So why would you spend money on a different centre back? So those questions were there towards the end of the window. So I would say the logical thing is to try and keep him till the end of the World Cup. And after the World Cup, some very interesting managers may become available. So then you take a choice. If Julian Nagelsmann is there, if he has a bad campaign, then there's one name with report. A couple of other national team managers might also make their sort of claim there to be there in the mix. So I would say right now, patience is key. I don't think a manager comes in and galvanizes what looks like a very scared 11 with a third choice, second choice centre back pairing with a goalkeeper who isn't good enough and errors all over the pitch. I don't think it changes mentality wise. There might be a small bounce, but it might revert to the mean, and that's my fear.
Wow, just the best projections from this grouping right now about what comes next.
Yeah, first of all, could I just say I am the one who's negative on the show all the time, Sam. So you stepping into my lane is really offensive to me. The second one,
It was a birthday gift to you, Nick.
Yeah,
to take some of the edge off.
Yeah, I think the second thing that I'd say is you can both have bad planning and bad luck. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. And I think when you look at it's going to take a season to understand how much was one or how much was the other. But I don't think you have the firepower up top, and you clearly don't have the enforcements at the back. And so I struggle to see how this was just bad luck, Sam. I mean, obviously there is some in there, but it's not just bad luck. You didn't plan for the worst possible outcome. And I think that as a sporting director team of however many people, 5 or 6 or 10, whatever it is, Someone has to be in the room going, what if all of our best players get injured? And that's basically what's happened, and not be fit. And they were just like, but gamble, we'll take it. And now we're seeing the full fruit of that.
I mean, I think maybe the other thing, kind of talk about like this idea of that the summer recruitment maybe was not as strong or as solid as it could have been. I mean, we think we've seen a very limited amount from Jamie Gittens so far. Obviously, Garnacho comes in super, super late to the end of the window. Again, we brought in Joao Pedro and Liam Delap to kind of reinforce the side heading into the Club World Cup. So, I mean, like we did do some business a little earlier in the window. But even someone like Joao Hato is a player for a little bit further than we are right now. And the number of senior players that you dropped into this side who are capable of changing the game, capable of moving us forward, someone like even Reese's level of, I think, mentality in this game or in a couple of games this season where he's just kind of been like look, guys, who's kind of need to like get on and kick on and go do some things, doesn't necessarily fully exist. Like, I do think that we technically have experienced players to kind of circle back to the first conversation we had, but you don't have a lot of game winners in this side. Like, you don't have a lot of people who are going to break it open and say, you know what, like, I can carry this forward. I can make something happen. We were so reliant on, Cole Palmer's first season, with Nico to kind of like be the team, right? And even in the following season when he dropped off, we were still a little bit of Cole Palmer FC, and not having him in this side has such a catastrophic like downward trend to what we are capable, I think, of accomplishing, because we haven't really reinforced appropriately with players that are maybe 2 to 3 years further in their development cycle, where they are already doing the things because either they are requesting higher wages or starting positions or don't fit into the model that we have constructed.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the other difficult part of this. Is like, we can be emotional after a match today, and I think we have every right to be emotional after a match like this today. I mean, this is football, and we're not fucking robots, I think like that's part of this, but we're not going to know if the ownership strategy of the buy young, develop, sell model is going to yield trophies in a sustainable way, in a consistent way for a minute. I think so far we can say mostly not, because we've only won a couple of trophies in 4 years, 2 more trophies than some other teams have for sure. But I think that's the really difficult part of this too, and why it makes for the reaction from today to not just be a reaction from today. It's you have to take it forward and look at what this could become. And Jamie Gittens and I'm not just picking on Gittens. You could take any of the young players, and in 3 or 4 years could be a world beater. We don't know. We have no clue right now. I think that part will be painful. The development part will be painful, because not all of these players are going to come in like Cole Palmer did and absolutely blow the doors off of the place and, become, potential club legends. Like, some of these guys are just not going to make it. Some of them will make it, but will take time. Some of them will start really hot and then fade away. These are all options on the table. And so, I think it's why I could be pissed off at the results today, and also like unsure of how this is all going to work in the future. And I know that's totally unsatisfying to anyone who wanted me to come on and rant and scream and do all the things.
It's a birthday gift to yourself, Nick.
But it's just impossible, Sam, I don't know. And so all it requires of everybody like us who does this podcast, who watches on TV, whatever, goes to the matches in person, is to just have an unlimited amount of patience.
I want to add something there, Nick. I mean, you do understand, like all of us understand here, that we haven't got really, game winners from the start. We're building towards something. But what exactly are you building towards if you've had maybe 2 situations where you could require somebody as lightning quick as Gittins, and you haven't thrown him on. There have been no wingers in the United game. You had again an opportunity to at least try and win something on the break, and Gittins is ridiculously quick, if not anything else. Those options have not been used. I mean, he's not played more than 60 minutes for Chelsea. The last time he came on and he played, I think, half an hour was against Fulham a month ago. So he's not going to develop on the bench. Just putting on a Chelsea shirt isn't going to make him a better player. He has to play. And how is Garnacho getting fit if he's playing 60 minutes, one time in 150 days? Those are the questions I need Maresca to answer. And I understand the game state might not suit it, but you need to somehow find these opportunities to get these guys up to speed, because then you say, I don't have anybody other than Pedro Neto on left wing. It's because you aren't preparing them for it. So that's what I would ask from Maresca. Plan better. Even if it means losing or like dropping points, just get these players up to scratch. You need a big squad. And if there are any more injuries that happen, God forbid, to Pedro Neto or Joao Pedro, it's game over. You drop to the middle of the table or even worse. So he has to start preparing and anticipating those situations going into December.
Well, I mean, 7th in the table right now is pretty close to that mid-table conversation to where you were discussing there, Sam. But look, I think we've tortured Nick Verlaine on his birthday long enough, and we need to allow him to find a way to celebrate. It wasn't the Ryder Cup. It wasn't this Chelsea victory.
I'm out here just getting
Nebraska football. You're taking all the strays.
Nebraska's on a bye week, so they can't disappoint me today. So how about that? That's pretty great. Golf, though, is certain to disappoint, and so that is what I'm off to do. And thanks for everyone who's been cooking me in the comments. Appreciate that. It's made for a swell day. It's been great.
Look, this has been another fun YouTube vlog. Go ahead, Sam.
Kansas City cookout on your birthday.
Yeah, I've been getting cooked. I am the barbecued meats on display. Yeah.
Fitting that you're in Kansas City. So look, this is going to do it for this one. Thanks again for joining us on a YouTube live. We're doing another one actually after the Liverpool game. You want to take that one? This is bad. Oh, wait to that one. But that's going to do it for this one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to get notified. Join us for the next YouTube live. Make sure to get in those comments as well. Subscribe to that free weekly newsletter, the London's Blue Dispatch that Sam writes. I'm sure this one will be a cracker of a newsletter for sure. Don't forget to leave 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Those are always appreciated. And you can get involved in our Discord community in the free or paid capacity to help support the podcast. We always appreciate that. But that's good for this one. So until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.